Keeping goldfish is just awesome. But man, keeping that water crystal clear and healthy, that can feel like a full-time job. You've probably heard people talking about UV sterilizers, right? But are they really a game changer for your tank or just some expensive, overhyped gadget? Well, let's get into it and figure out if one is actually right for you and your goldfish. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the problem we're all trying to solve. Then we'll dive into how this tech actually works. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, the benefits, before tackling the potential risks and, all the myths out there. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to use one the right way and give you the final verdict. All right, first up, let's talk about something pretty much every single goldfish keeper has dealt with at some point. And that is the constant and, let's be honest, sometimes really frustrating battle for clear, healthy water. Does any of this sound familiar? I mean, you feel like you're doing everything by the book, but you're still fighting that stubborn pea soup green water that just won't go away. Or maybe it's a bacterial bloom that makes your tank look all milky. Even worse, maybe you've had to deal with diseases like itch that just seem to pop up out of nowhere. These are the exact reasons people start looking into a UV sterilizer. Okay, so what exactly is this device that promises to fix all these headaches? It's time to pull back the curtain and see what's going on inside this quote-unquote magic box. The secret sauce here is something called UVC light. So as your tank water gets pumped through this self-contained chamber, it gets blasted with this very specific high-energy light. And what this light does is it completely scrambles the DNA of any little microorganisms floating around in the water. That means things like algae and some nasty bacteria can't reproduce anymore. It's basically a targeted strike against the things making your water green and your fish sick. Now take a look at this diagram, because it shows something that is absolutely critical: placement. See, a UV sterilizer isn't a filter on its own. It's a piece of a bigger system. For it to work properly, the water going into it has to be clean of debris first. That's why it always goes after your mechanical and biological filters. You want to make sure there's no gunk blocking that precious UV light. So you might be thinking, how can one quick pass through a light be that effective? Well, this quote explains it perfectly. It's something called the reciprocity rule. A single pass might not get everything, but think about it, your tank water is cycling through that sterilizer over and over and over again all day long. It's just like the sunburn analogy here. A little bit of exposure, repeated constantly, really adds up. All those little zaps of UV light accumulate, and that's how you get control over the algae and pathogens. All right, so we get how they work. Now let's talk about the fun part, the benefits. What is the real compelling case for adding one of these to your goldfish setup? Honestly, the benefits are pretty huge, especially if you keep goldfish. Number one, it is an algae-killing machine. I mean, it will absolutely eradicate that free-floating green water, and usually in just a matter of days. It also acts like a bodyguard for your fish, zapping the free-swimming stages of nasty parasites like itch before they even get a chance to latch on. Plus, by doing all this, you often don't have to resort to dumping harsh chemical meds into your tank, which is way better for your fish and for your delicate biological filter. Okay, but it can't all be perfect, right? To get the whole story, we have to talk about some of the common fears people have and bust a few long-standing myths. This is the big one. This is the number one question people ask. Are you basically trading clear water for a crashed nitrogen cycle? Are you just going to kill off all the good bacteria that keep your fish alive? And the answer, thankfully, is a huge, definitive no. Here's the key thing to remember. Your beneficial bacteria, the little guys that eat ammonia and nitrite, they live on surfaces. They're colonized in your filter media, in your gravel, on your decorations. They are not just free floating in the water. And since they never pass through the UV unit, they are completely 100% safe. And let's just knock out a few other myths real quick. Will it create toxic ozone gas? Nope, not with the bulbs used in aquarium units. Will it make your water too clean and mess up your fish's immune system? Nah, that's really unlikely. It just lowers the number of bad guys. It doesn't turn your tank into a sterile operating room. And finally, can it hurt your fish? No way. That powerful light is totally sealed inside the unit's chamber. Okay, so we've established they're safe if you use them correctly. So let's get down to brass tacks. Let's talk about the practical side of things. How do you use one smartly so you get the results you're looking for? Now, this is a super important idea to wrap your head around. Clarification versus sterilization. We're talking about the exact same device here. The only difference is your goal, and that goal determines the dose of UV. A lower power dose gives you clarification, perfect for knocking out green water algae. But if you want true sterilization to kill tougher things like parasites, you need a much higher dose, which usually means a stronger bulb or a slower flow rate. This chart here really helps make sense of that. Just look at the row for the 18-watt bulb. If you just want to control algae in your 100-gallon tank, you can run water through it at 300 gallons per hour. But if you want to control parasites with that same unit, you have to slow the water flow way down to around 100 gallons per hour to give the UV light enough contact time to do its job. It's all about dose. And listen, a UV sterilizer is not a set it and forget it piece of equipment. If you want it to keep working, you have to follow 3 really simple rules. 1, run it 24/7. 2, clean the quart sleeve inside it every month or so. If that thing gets covered in gunk, the light can't get out. And 3, you have to replace the bulb every year. Even if it still lights up, the UV output fades over time and it just stops being effective. So after all of that, what's the bottom line? Is a UV sterilizer really worth it for your goldfish tank? I think this is the best way to think about it. Good biofiltration, that is the foundation of your aquarium. It is absolutely essential. It's what keeps your fish alive by processing their toxic waste. A UV sterilizer, on the other hand, is like an insurance policy. It's a supportive tool. It handles specific problems like algae and free-floating pathogens. It makes the whole environment healthier and clearer. It supports the foundation, but it can never, ever replace it. So here's the final verdict. UV sterilizers are awesome. They're safe, they're highly effective for very specific problems like green water and disease prevention. But, and this is a big but, they are not a substitute for good husbandry. They will never make up for the basics, like having the right size tank, doing your water changes, and not overstocking your fish. It's a supplement to good care, not a replacement for it. Ultimately, it all comes down to finding that right balance for your own tank. A UV sterilizer can be an absolutely incredible tool in your arsenal, but the real art and joy of fish keeping is in blending that smart technology with the timeless principles of good old-fashioned, consistent care. That's the balance that's going to give you a truly thriving aquarium.